Welcome to Shomachshov on the Daf. We're holding in Chulin Daf Mim Dalet. The Gemara in the end of with base brings Rav Chizdo Ezu Talmid Chochom Zeroye Treifel Latzvoi. Who's a Talmid Chochom? Someone who could come and say treifel on his own animal. From Rav Chizdo Ezu Soine Matonis Iche. Who's someone who hates gifts? Zeroye Treifel Latzvoi. He's willing to lose money. And then the Gemara brings Dosh Mazutra Mishmei Rav Chizdo Kol Mishekoyre V'Shoine. Someone learns, he learns Torah, he learns Mishnah, V'Roye Treifel Latzvoi V'Shibish Tevei Chachamim. Allah v'kosav v'omer yegia kapecha ki toichel ashrecha v'toivlach. And the more goes on, brings Rav Zvid soicha v'noichel oilam hazen oilam haba. What is the inyan of you? What is the connection of all these memers? So the Maharal in Chidush HaGodus says the big yesod that we want to talk about here somebody who's completely shalom on his own. He is full. He has the full shleimus. Someone is a shalom, so it's good for him. It's toivloi. Toiv is to be shalom. And he goes on to say, what is he over here, the shalom? He has mikra, he has mishnah, he has Talmud. So he has the full gamut of Torah. He's able to know all the Torah kula. So that's the shleimus of the sechel. And the fact is, roy treifel ha'atzvoi, that's the shleimus of the nefesh. So he has the full shleimus. And someone who has the full shleimus comes to Zvid and says, gets olam hazen olam haba. Because bnei adam shleimim belong to this world and belong to the world to come. In the Siva Torah, Perek Dalet, the Maharal adds more. What does it have to do with soinim matonas yeche? Because someone who receives gifts from others, so he's dependent on somebody else. He's not shalom b'fnei atzvoi. He's not full because he needs something for somebody else. And he says someone who's a chai, someone who's really living, he's independent on his own. That's the shleimus. The shleimus is the independence. He has whatever he needs. He doesn't need anybody else. He doesn't have to rely on somebody else. Soinim matonis means a person doesn't need the matonis of someone else. And this connects beautifully with the Maharal and Der Chaim, Perek Hovis, Perek Al Mishnah Yud. That there he goes on to say, what is the idea of Ehoivet HaMelach of Esnas HaRabbonos? So he brings the Gemara in Brachas that says, Toiva Ne'nenim Yigia Kapoi Yoisem Yirei Shamayim. Someone who works and is enjoying his benefit of his labor is greater than the Yirei Shamayim. Says the Maharal, what does it mean? Because the tachlis of this world is to be independent. Independence means the first independence that a person should have is independence in ruchnius. That he can come and learn Torah on his own, understand the Torah and dash in the Torah and know the halacha on his own. He's royet treifel ha'atzvoi. That's independence. Then there's also independence, which is a physical independence. The person doesn't have to rely on others. That's soinim matonas yeche. So the Maharal there, the Chaim says that who reaches olam hazeh and olam haba, the shleimus of olam hazeh and olam haba, somebody who's fully independent. So he says, when the Gemara there in Bracha says, it's going to equate someone who's Yirei Shamayim, but he depends on others. Once someone depends on others, he doesn't have that same shleimus that someone who's independent on his own has. And that's the idea of that's the idea of that a person should be independent in both areas, both in Torah and also in financially should be independent. The Maharal in the Siva Torah Perek Dalet that we mentioned before ends with a mustashmus, and he comes and says, "Ashrei chelka shezoiche lemadrega ma'ala azos." Abba v'yiseinu lo rabim shemegedem chochem. And we have a people, many they're not tamid chacham, they can rely on their own. And he says, people now think, what is tamid chacham? Someone who relies on others, speaking financially. That's not the definition of tamid chacham. The Yikra definition is that a person should be able to be independent on his own. And add to this, what the Ben Yoda says over here in our sugyo, and Yimela, everything comes together in a beautiful way. Because Ben Yoda says, if the idea of soinim matonis yeche, that's really how we define Talmid Chacham, someone who's shalom mechol inyanim. So if so, what's shot that we see today that Talmid Chachamim rely on others? Says the Ben Yoda, a person who realizes the only way for him to learn Torah is only by being supported by somebody else. So that he's doing that because that's the only way for him to be kohen Torah. But in his heart of hearts, he's soinim matonis. He doesn't want to get from others. He's not coming to indulge and benefit from others. So he's considered to be soinim matonis. The soinim matonis is the fact that he is not interested in others. He just has no choice. So he's still considered to be soinim matonis. What is the right to that? Says the Ben Yoda, the roy treifel ha'atzvoi. When he has an animal that has a treifel, he has no problem to pass it. He's not running after money. He's not trying to grab whatever he can. He just takes the minimum amount in order to survive. So he's still considered to be soinim matonis. Mimele, that's the pshar in the Gemara. The Gemara says, who is the shleimus in this world? Who's the one who gets olam hazeh and olam haba? Someone who's fully independent. Independent in Torah, that he has Mikra and Mishnah and Gemara, and independent in the fact that he doesn't need others in order to survive. Not that he doesn't need, maybe technically. He may need to get support, but he's not something that's what he's running after. His nefesh is shalom ifnei atzmoi. His shleimus is something that's independent on his own. He doesn't really need others mitzat atzmoi, just beleis breiro. That's what he needs to get support. But he's not running after it. It's not that something he's relying on because that's his life to get from others. He's roya treifel atzmoi. He's willing to give up every money in the world if that's the right thing. So he's independent. He's a shrecha v'toiv loch, a shrecha bo'olam hazeh v'toiv loch lo'olam habo. Anyone who wants to join or sponsor Shomach Shava Shiurim, please email shomachshava@gmail.com.